Good afternoon on today's Angry Bulletin. In the Martian night sky, the Curiosity Rover caught sight of what NASA thinks is an elongated asteroid of some kind, passing uncomfortably close to the planet, a cigar-shaped object that remained in sight for several minutes before disappearing behind the horizon. But was it an elongated cigar-shaped asteroid? Well, if it was, it bore a great deal of similarity to Oumuamua. And meanwhile, a little closer to home, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency has just dumped a ton of new UAP footage onto their website, together with a lot of documentation, and yet not a tremendous amount of explanation. What does all of this mean? Is this stuff legitimate? And if it isn't, why would they release it in the first place? All of this and more coming at you on The Angry Astronaut right now. Good afternoon, and once again, welcome to The Angry Astronaut. Before we get started, once again, just want to let my Denver viewers know that this coming Sunday, that is to say Sunday, October 1st, 2023, we're going to be having my next tour event, actually my last tour event until November anyway here in North America, and all of the details are in the description. It's from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Westminster Rec Center. And all of this was made possible by an awesome viewer of mine that dug it up at the 11th hour, making the Denver event possible. And once again, $10 in advance, and you can pay online, or $15 at the door. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about the topic at hand. So a lot of you have probably thought that I've lost my mind, or that I've engaged in blatant clickbaiting by bringing up a topic like this. Oumuamua spotted by the Curiosity Rover on Mars? How is that even remotely possible? Well, interestingly enough, and this sort of thing happens from time to time, events that take place that defy natural explanation, defy any sort of explanation that NASA may provide. Actually, in this case, NASA didn't even bother providing an explanation for what Curiosity saw, but something that proved to be pretty damn mysterious. An object flying apparently in orbit, or just simply through the Martian sky, that bore a great deal of resemblance to the object that flew through our solar system in 2017, Oumuamua. So first of all, why is Oumuamua a significant object as far as we're concerned anyway? I mean, most NASA astronomers and others consider Oumuamua to be nothing more than an intriguing interstellar asteroid. Well, it's simply because this object behaved very much unlike an asteroid in just about every important respect. First of all, it started out from a location in the galaxy that corresponds with something called the local standard of rest. That is to say, it was stationary relative to the stars moving around it. An incredibly useful location for a navigational beacon, for example, or something along those lines. But that's just the beginning. In addition to that, it was highly elongated, very strangely shaped, in very, very reflective, much more like metal than like an asteroid. But in addition to that, it tumbled at a very constant rate that did not change under any circumstances. Now, that shouldn't seem all that unusual, because an object rotating in space really shouldn't change the rate of tumbling. However, here's why the tumbling is so significant. On its way out of the solar system, Oumuamua accelerated at a rate that could not be accounted for by gravity alone. Now, that's the sort of thing that happens with comets all the time. Outgassing from comets created when the sun heats the surface of the comet can change the trajectory and velocity of the comet. However, no outgassing of any kind was detected, but more significantly, the rate of tumbling of the object did not change either. And given how much of the object would have had to have been converted into a gas in order to produce the acceleration that was observed, First of all, there would have been some observable outgassing, and the object was under constant observation while it was accelerating out of the solar system. And in addition to that, the rate of tumbling would have certainly changed, and yet it didn't. And so it is these factors that prove conclusively that Oumuamua was neither asteroid nor comet, but may very well have been an artificial object using some sort of propulsion method in order to accelerate out of the solar system, perhaps a solar sail of some kind, as was calculated by Avi Loeb and his colleague Amir Siraj. However, this isn't the end of the story, as I'm sure you suspect. The Curiosity Rover, back in 2014, detected something very unusual in the night sky, and something that defies all natural explanation, at least up to this point. How so? Some people have said that this looks like just some sort of time exposure streak. Well, it most definitely is not. For example, let's say that this is a time exposure effect on the moon Phobos, as some have proposed. Well, Phobos orbits Mars 3 times a day, which means it's moving 3 times as fast as the stars around it, which of course would be moving as the planet rotates. If we have this big of a time exposure effect on Phobos, then the stars should be streaks as well. But this is not the only reason that this is definitely not some kind of time exposure effect. In addition to that, there are other objects moving in these images, and they are not demonstrating any sort of time exposure effects whatsoever. They are instead simply moving. And by the way, this is an enormous mystery as well. Now keep in mind, there are approximately 2 minutes worth of time between each of these images. So whatever it is has to be moving fairly quickly compared to the stars around it. Now that's the first thing. But at the same time, it's not like they're sailing through the sky at a high velocity either. However, we have 2 objects, one an elongated cigar-shaped thing, and another a simple dot in the sky, neither of which should really be there. Because keep in mind, Mars doesn't have any satellites orbiting it, aside from the couple of satellites that we put into orbit around it. But other than that, there should be nothing really appearing in these images, and certainly not 2 moving objects right next to each other. Now keep in mind, the Oumuamua speculation, that's all mine. Nobody else has speculated that this might be an Oumuamua-like object. However, the size and shape definitely seems to fit, but others have observed how this object bears a great deal of resemblance to other objects that have been observed in close proximity to volcanoes and such. Other objects that have apparently been observing significant events happening on our own planet. Once again, I'm not sure about all of that, but what I do know is that it appears that there is some sort of large cigar-shaped object in the Martian night sky, together with a much smaller object moving in close conjunction with one another. And what Avi Loeb proposed about Oumuamua was that it might be a mothership of some kind dispatching smaller probe ships, one of which may have arrived on our planet in 2017. Interestingly, the same year that Oumuamua was making its way through the solar system. This object, by the way, splashed down off the coast of Portugal, and hopefully the Galileo project is going to be dredging the bottom of the ocean there in the same way that they dredged the bottom of the ocean off the coast of New Guinea. But getting back to Curiosity, this is a very big mystery indeed. Was this some sort of large mothership dispatching a smaller probe? And if it wasn't, then what the hell was it? Now, as you know, once again, I am very, very hesitant to believe that NASA or other government agencies might be engaged in some sort of cover-up. However, it's interesting to note that Curiosity definitely has more higher resolution images of these particular photographs available, but NASA never posted them for some reason. And NASA has also been very, very quiet about these images and what this mysterious object in the night sky might be. However, this is something that happens a great deal. These strange images sometimes appear from Mars, spark a great deal of speculation, especially on the part of ufologists, and then fall into obscurity. And by the way, for those of you who think that this must be just some kind of strange streak, a photographic effect rather than something real, well, have a look at this thing. Does that look like some sort of solid object or just some sort of time exposure streak? Well, it is in fact an object. A balloon, actually, sort of a toy airship that moves by the power of the sun. However, there are obviously no airships on Mars, but there may indeed be a cigar-shaped object that somebody else built, and it flew it through the Martian night sky back in 2014. Okay, let's get on to some very interesting UAP footage that was mysteriously dumped on the US Border Patrol's website a few weeks ago without a great deal of explanation, but with a lot of documentation that once again was a little bit cryptic. A lot of stuff that was apparently released in conjunction with the Freedom of Information Act. Let's just go ahead and start reading off some of these messages that were apparently sent between officials in this agency in regards to an investigation of UAPs. Quote, "During this research and while conducting interviews, I found hundreds of agents and dozens of pilots that have witnessed UAP-related events. Their stories are both credible and amazing. I'm confident you can find one if solicited for the position. We need to gather this data, catalog it, and document its existence. The Department of Homeland Security could play a pivotal role in the possible early warning in what former President Ronald Reagan deemed, quote, an outside alien threat, unquote, especially since we have significant aviation role along the southern border. In June of 2021, the Director of National Intelligence came out with a UAP report, and in that made it clear on the need for reporting requirements within all government entities." By the way, have a look at this. Very strange how that object kind of disappeared behind that rise and then suddenly starts floating up, and by the way, you're going to see it take off here in a moment. And yeah, perhaps this could be a balloon of some kind or whatever, but this agency films balloons and birds every single day of the week. Why would they have uploaded a video like this if that's what this was? So you're going to see this in just a moment. Very interesting indeed, the movement of this particular object, which bears a lot of resemblance, in my opinion, to the orb-like objects that we have seen in other Department of Defense videos. And by the way, before I go any further, if some of you would like to see a video about the CIA's documents in regards to UFOs and UAPs, because they made all of that public not too long ago either, well, I released a video about that topic a few weeks ago and made a promise that I would release another one if I reached 4,000 likes. Well, we're very close, but not quite there, so you can tune into that video here, or you can wait until the end of this video and I'll have it linked as well. Okay, let's get on to how this message is worded. Quote, "I know this subject is sensitive in nature, and I have taken utmost care not to divulge sensitive or classified information. They have had me sign an NDA as well, and will protect my identity until after I retire. Thank you for allowing me this incredible opportunity. I look forward to see how the program turns out in the future, what the patrol changes, and the positive impact it may have on safety and security." By the way, we have no idea who wrote this message because all of that was blacked out for security reasons. The documentation also has some information in regards to a particular incident where an air support unit of some kind associated with the Border Patrol encountered a UAP that led them on a merry chase, very much like this one is doing right now. On the 9th of February 2021, while assigned to the air support unit as a tactical flight officer, I was working with Blank, who is acting as pilot in command. We had just been cleared from a call when Blank advised me that a Customs Air and Marine helicopter that had just taken off from Davis-Monthan Air Force Base had a near miss with an unmanned aircraft system just west of the base. We responded to the area to assist in attempting to locate the aircraft. There is a huge section of this message, by the way, that is blacked out for security reasons, but it goes on to say, quote, "I attempted to track it utilizing my night vision goggles, but I was not able to observe the lone position light that I had seen, even when looking at the correct position in space. Also using goggles, I was not able to see the actual craft in order to try to get an estimate of its size. I would provide updates on the location to Blank, who related to air traffic control and the CBP helicopter." Now, at first, the pilots involved thought that they were tracking some sort of quadcopter, a drone of some kind, but as the pursuit continued, it became very clear that this thing had capabilities far beyond any drone that they had ever encountered. At first, they thought it was a quadcopter of some kind, 3 to 5 feet wide, with a single blinking green LED light on the bottom. They contacted a Tucson Police Department helicopter Air 2 to assist in the tracking of the drone. Within 5 to 6 minutes, Air 2 arrived on the scene. The crew coordinated with Air 2 and continued to track the drone around the airbase. Within a few minutes, it appeared that the operator became aware that the drone was being tracked and started to climb away from the airbase to the northeast. Air 2 and Blank stayed with the drone in the climb to altitudes above 10,000 feet. The drone started to fly circles around Air 2 while the crew of Blank was trying to acquire the drone. The crew of Blank followed Air 2 approximately 1 to 1.5 miles behind them and continued the attempt to acquire the drone with an IR camera. The drone started to conduct evasive maneuvers in an attempt to break visual contact with Air 2. Both aircraft continued to track the drone as it turned northwest and departed Tucson airspace. The drone continued to climb to approximately Blank into the clouds above and between Marna Airport and Silver Bell Mine. Air 2 then broke off and returned to Tucson. The crew of Blank descended to a lower altitude and conducted a search for a possible recovery crew within the area of the last visual sighting. The crew of Blank searched for approximately 30 minutes and was unable to find any personnel or vehicles parked in the area. In addition to this, there are some cryptic text messages that appear to be between the individual who's researching UAPs and his boss, with a lot of anger, a lot of discontent being expressed by this boss as to how this guy or woman is carrying out their job in regards to UAPs. Apparently, they're jumping the chain of command over and over again, emailing sensitive information that they shouldn't be. All of this stuff was released under the Freedom of Information Act, with the identity of the people sending the text being redacted. And incidentally, once again, we're seeing what appears to be some sort of orb-shaped object moving under surveillance by the Border Patrol. Again, this could be a bird of some kind. This could be perhaps a balloon, weather balloon, etc. But if that is indeed the case, well, the Border Patrol films balloons and birds all the time. Why would they pick out this particular footage as being significant? Again, an interesting mystery to say the least. It would be really nice if we could get up some much better close-up views of this particular object, but of course we're not going to get them. But here's the most compelling sequence of all, in my opinion. We have an A-10 Warthog just flying through the air, not an unusual sight along the border, and then all of a sudden a spherical object flies past it, changes course, and begins to follow it. And this is highly unusual. It follows the A-10 for a significant period of time. It obviously grabbed the attention of the camera operator, and then the A-10 moves away as if it's aware of the fact that it's being followed. But again, perhaps this could be some object that's significantly closer, a bird, a drone, something along those lines, hard to say. And Again, though, why would the operator have regarded this as being particularly interesting? Why would they have followed the object? And why would this have been released subsequently if it was such an easily explainable incident? What you're watching right now is yet another one of these strange orb-like objects. Very similar again to what the Department of Defense has seen over and over. By the way, these videos, there are so many of them. There is so much visual information about UAPs that the Border Patrol has just dumped online for people to have a look at. I don't have enough time in this video to show all of it to you, but I do have links in the description so you can check it out for yourself. So, a lot of mysteries being conveyed to you today. We have very few answers, as usual, being provided by the government, something that definitely needs to change sometime in the near future. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, please subscribe. Also, please consider supporting my ongoing tour and my move to Europe. Check that in the description if it's something you would like to do. And until we have fewer mysteries and more answers, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.